All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of the James Nolan podcast. We got some breaking news yesterday, right before the Super Bowl, from Jay Glazer of Fox Sports. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are moving on from each other. It is a disappointment for many Jets fans, but it's also excitement for a lot of Jets fans. I'm kind of in the middle. Aaron Rodgers, did he have the best season? No. But he did play pretty good. He finished top 8 in passing touchdowns, top 7 in passing yards, 28 passing touchdowns over 3,800 passing yards. Actually had more passing yards and more passing touchdowns than Josh Allen, who just won the MVP. But at the same time, he is 41 years old. And if we keep Rodgers, we also keep Davante Adams. And I love Rodgers and I love Davante Adams. But the cap hit with those two on the roster next year is insane. Now, no matter what, by cutting Aaron Rodgers, whether it's June 1st or not, we're going to get into that too. I think they should actually do it before June 1st so they have no cap implications for the 2026 team. And they can actually have more flexibility if they cut Rodgers and don't do the June 1st designation in 2026 because Rodgers won't be on the books. So, yes, you take a little bit of a hit to the mouth by cutting Rodgers this year. You take a little bit more cap away. But at the same time, Darren Moogie just took over this team. Aaron Glenn, he's already stated he wants to win. Would Aaron Rodgers give us a pretty good chance to win in 2026? 2025 to the 2026 year? Yeah, he would, undoubtedly. I don't think there's any other QB in free agency. There's no QB that we're going to get in the draft that will be better than Aaron Rodgers in 2025. No doubt about it. But at the same time, if we're looking 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down this road, the Jets are going to be set back by keeping Aaron Rodgers for one more year. So they made the right decision in my mind. They met with him. Aaron Glenn and Darren Moogie both had him fly to New Jersey. So Rodgers still likely wants to play. It just won't be for the Jets. It just won't be. But, now that Rodgers is over, we can stop talking about Aaron Rodgers. We don't need to talk about him anymore. The only thing you really need to talk about is whether you cut him or designate him on June 1st. I don't think, like I said before, you don't wait till June 1st. You get rid of him as soon as you can, just so we have more flexibility in the 2026 offseason. Now, let's get into my 3 top options to take over as quarterback for the New York Jets. My third-ranked option would be to roll with Tyrod Taylor as the starting quarterback to start the year and draft a Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart, whether that's in the first round with the 7th overall pick or it's in the second or middle rounds. Now, I think Milroe is the better option over Dart. I think his ceiling is a little bit higher. Don't get me wrong. I love Dart. I think he's going to be I can never really say that any quarterback that gets drafted is going to be a surefire thing, but I do think Dart will find NFL success. But Jalen Milroe just has a higher ceiling overall. And then you get a QB room of Tyrod Taylor, Jalen Milroe, and Jordan Travis. Now, Jordan Travis had a little bit of a setback with a foot injury, broke his leg in Florida State, devastating injury, set him back for missed the entire year. He didn't even take snaps in practice in the last half of the year. But I do like the talent of Jordan Travis. I do like the talent of Jalen Milroe. And I like Tyrod Taylor as a veteran presence. Now, Tyrod Taylor is also 35. He's also kind of injury prone. So you do have to have that. You would have that quarterback 2 battle between Travis and Jalen Milroe. And especially if you can get Milroe in the second round, which I think he is a second-round quarterback right now, that would be a major plus for the Jets. Because then they can use that 7th pick on an old lineman, on an edge rusher, on another cornerback. You never really know. This defense, it does need secondary help because DJ Reed is likely going to be gone. And we can't just rely on Sauce Gardner to stop every single receiver. He struggled a lot in the first half of the year. He did step it up a lot and got back to the old Sauce Gardner in the second half of the year. But you can't just rely on Sauce. And then defensively, you're also going to need to make decisions in the linebacker room because is C.J. Mosley going to be coming back? Because they could also cut C.J. Mosley. I hope they don't. I love C.J. Mosley. He's been the captain of this team since he's been here. He was offers a great amount of leadership in that locker room. I want to keep C.J. Mosley because I still think the defense is relatively good. I don't think we need an edge rusher, even though they could go there in that route. I mean, Jermaine Johnson is coming off a torn Achilles. But then again, you have Quentin Williams on the defensive line. You have Will McDonald on the defensive line, who had 12.5 sacks this year. He really stood out this year on the Jets defensive line. And then, I mean, bye-bye Hassan Reddick likely. His contract will be voided. And then, the return of Jermaine Johnson should give this defense a little boost. But I also wouldn't use it on necessarily secondary because, like I said, we do have Sauce Gardner, who's an elite corner. You could also get in a cornerback in like third, fourth, or you can go out there and sign one. You can even bring back DJ Reed for all I care. But I would use that pick on another offensive lineman, and here's why. Our offensive line, we have 3 very good young offensive linemen. But one of those offensive linemen does tend to get hurt a lot, and that's Elijah Vera Tucker. So I think you can have some insurance on the offensive line by adding one, you get 4 really good young offensive linemen. And 2, you just look at that line. They're building a relatively good line. Olu Fashanu was great. Joe Tippmann played in every single snap this year. And then obviously we all know when healthy, Elijah Vera Tucker is a beast. So I would go after probably another offensive tackle in the draft to pair up with Olu. I think that would be the best option for the Jets with that 7th overall pick. I mean, you got Will Campbell out of LSU, who I really love. A lot of mock drafts do have the Jets taking Will Campbell at 7. I would love that pick. Imagine Will Campbell, Olu Fashanu, Joe Tippmann, and Elijah Vera Tucker. That's what I would do. I would try to get Will Campbell, shore up that offensive line, because if the Philadelphia Eagles show the NFL fan base, just every 32 teams had to realize you win not only with Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, and A.J. Brown, but having a stud offensive line, it helps. That's why they were in the Super Bowl 2 out of the 3 last years. The Chiefs, they won back-to-back Super Bowls because they had pretty good, their first Super Bowl 2 years ago, second Super Bowl, I should say, in the last, 5? That first Super Bowl that started the three-peat that could have happened was because of a great offensive line, too. Second half, they took the second one, they took a step back. And then in year 3, where they're trying to go for the three-peat, their offensive line was horrendous. And the Philadelphia Eagles arguably had the best offensive line in football. Probably did. I don't know how you can argue against it, especially after the way they looked last night, the way they looked in the entire postseason and the regular season. So if I'm the Jets, I'm using that 7th overall pick on another offensive lineman. I know we've been taking a lot of offensive linemen in the first round these past few years, but they've all turned out to be pretty well. The only offensive lineman that was a bust, and he wasn't even really a bust because he was just on the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl winning team yesterday, is Mekhi Becton. So the Jets have kind of nailed every single offensive lineman that they have drafted in the first round these past few years. So I would say, yeah, go out there, and if Will Campbell's available, if Kevin Banks Jr. is available out of Texas, even Josh Simmons out of Ohio, you got to take one of those 3 guys if they are available, especially if it's Will Campbell available at number 7. Because no matter what quarterback you bring in, obviously they are going to need protection. We already have a stud wide receiver in Garrett Wilson who we're likely going to keep, because the only reason those trade rumors were popping up with Garrett Wilson is because he didn't really have a good relationship with Aaron Rodgers. Breece Hall, he had a much better relationship than Garrett Wilson did with Aaron Rodgers, but Breece Hall is still, I would say, a top 15. I would say if he had a better year, another 1,000-yard rushing season like he did 2 years ago, he might be able to sneak in the top 10. And I still think he has top 5 to 10 running back potential in him. But right now I'd put him in top 15. But, I mean, you can't ignore what Breece Hall does for the Jets. In my opinion, no matter what quarterback they sign, the offensive scheme next year needs to just be simply Breece Hall. Breece Hall, Breece Hall, Breece Hall, Breece Hall. He can catch. He can obviously run. Breece Hall, in my opinion, is the most talented offensive player on the Jets. And that's even accounting Garrett Wilson, who's had 3 consecutive 1,000-yard-plus seasons. So the Jets have a million ways they can go this offseason. Really a million. But in my opinion, it should be draft Will Campbell if he's available at number 7 overall. All right, now let's get into those quarterbacks. I mean, we did title this, could the Jets' next QB just be Justin Fields or Daniel Jones? So I did say Tyrod Taylor was my third best option, but that would also be obviously drafting a guy like Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart in the middle rounds. Jalen Milroe played great at Alabama. He had, I believe, 20 rushing touchdowns just this past season. In the past 2 seasons, he's had 39 passing touchdowns. He has a cannon of an arm. He can move all around. And another thing that I've learned from this NFL postseason, really from the last 5 NFL postseasons, is you win not just with a great offensive line, but with a mobile quarterback, with a dual threat quarterback. Just look at the quarterbacks that were in the postseason this year. You had C.J. Stroud. You had Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. All 5 of those guys, Jalen Hurts, all 6 of those guys I just mentioned can all do it with their legs too. They can all do it with their legs. So Jalen Milroe, no doubt about it, he can do it with his legs. He'll figure it out. If there's a play broken down, you don't have to worry about that with Jalen Milroe, at least when he was at Alabama. I'm not saying it's necessarily his success with Alabama is going to translate to the NFL, but I do like his ceiling. His ceiling is much higher, in my opinion, than maybe even Shadeur Sanders. I think Cam Ward has the highest ceiling overall out of these quarterbacks. But I could make a case that Jalen Milroe has a higher ceiling than a Shadeur Sanders. So I would like the duo of Jalen Milroe and Tyrod Taylor. Start Tyrod Taylor because, I don't want to throw my quarterback under the fire. You look at some of the best quarterbacks, just the 2 alone that were in the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. Both of them didn't start on day 1. Both of them didn't start. And just look at the Jets' history of throwing quarterbacks out there day 1. Zach Wilson failed. Sam Darnold, who had a great year, is probably the best free agent quarterback on the open market this year. He failed because the Jets didn't set him up for success. And he just wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. He was a 21-year-old kid. So I don't want to throw my quarterback out there day 1. So if it is a Jalen Milroe or a Jackson Dart, I do want to give Tyrod Taylor that opportunity to be that bridge. I think Tyrod Taylor, you have your bridge quarterback on the roster. So I do like that idea. That's if we draft a quarterback. You can't just roll with Tyrod Taylor, not sign another quarterback. You have to roll with Tyrod Taylor if you draft another quarterback. Another great option, in my opinion, this might be a little bit of a hot take, former New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones. Now, obviously, he had minimal success with the Giants, very minimal. He only won 3 games in his last 2 seasons with the Giants. But I can't lie, in 2022, he balled out and got the Giants their first postseason win since 2011. Well, 2012, I should say, when they won the Super Bowl. But 2011 to 2012 season. But Daniel Jones, he was not set up for success at all with the Giants. They didn't get him a top receiver until just this year when he had Malik Neighbors for a few games. And they didn't really have enough time to build chemistry because they just let him go. In 2022, he did what he could with that team and got them to the playoffs. And against a Minnesota Vikings team, a very good Minnesota Vikings team that year, he balled out with over 300 passing yards, over 2 passing touchdowns in that game. So Daniel Jones is also a credible option, in my opinion, for the New York Jets. I think Daniel Jones could have success with the Jets. I'm not saying it's Super Bowl, but I think, with the talent the Jets have defensively and on the offensive side, especially if they take another O-lineman at 7 overall, like Will Campbell, I think Daniel Jones would actually have a pretty decent year with the Jets. And I think he's a type of guy behind a good O-line, with the Breece Hall, with the Garrett Wilson, I think he could get us to the playoffs. But that's the ceiling, to the playoffs. Now, he's also only 27 years old, so he's young. He's still and you can also sign him to that 1-year deal, similar to what the Vikings did with Sam Darnold a year ago. You sign him on that 1-year deal. He can turn around his career and ball out, have a great year. And now Sam Darnold's probably going to get over $40 million, even though he was terrible in week 17 or week 18, and then in the first round of the playoffs. But he's still going to get paid because he threw 35 passing touchdowns, had over 4,200 yards. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is going to have that type of year that Sam Darnold just is coming off of, but he's going to want to prove himself. He's going to want to prove to all 32 teams, hey, I can still be a starting quarterback, and he wants that money, that guaranteed money too, because he didn't get that much guaranteed money with the Giants with that 4-year deal he signed. All right, that's my second best option. Now let's go to my first best option. and I'm sure a lot of you know it based off the title, is Justin Fields. Coming off, I would say, 6 really good games with the Pittsburgh Steelers, led them to a 4-2 record, 10 total touchdowns, 5 rushing, 5 passing, only 1 interception. And just two years ago with the Chicago Bears, this is a guy who had over 1,100 rushing yards and 25 total touchdowns. I would love the idea of Justin Fields on the New York Jets. I think it's a match made in heaven, in my opinion. I love the idea of putting those players I just mentioned, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and then you drafted Will Campbell, and you also have Joe Tippmann, Olu Fashanu, Elijah Vera-Tucker coming back on that O-line. That's 4 young, great O-linemen, in my opinion, with a really good wide receiver and an elite running back. And you can even make the case that Garrett Wilson is an elite wide receiver. Right now, I have him as a really, really good wide receiver. But yeah, I mean, Fields with those two. I mean, he played with Garrett Wilson at Ohio State. We know the success that they had. So, and at his age, I mentioned Daniel Jones is only 27. He still has time to turn his career around. So he'll want to prove himself. Same thing with Justin Fields. He's only 25. So if he does prove himself, I would say the best option for the Jets to find their franchise quarterback in free agency is Justin Fields. If they can get the most out of Justin Fields, that would be huge. Like I mentioned before, just 2 years ago with the Bears, with a terrible Bears roster, over 1,100 rushing yards and 25 total touchdowns. I think a lot of Jets fans would like that. So, listen, I know they're coming off a disappointing season, but they could still fight for a playoff spot. They really could. I really do. They have a talented defense. Quentin Williams, like I just mentioned, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, Sauce Gardner, C.J. Mosley, depending on what they do with him. And then the weapons that they have on offense, and Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, the 3 young offensive linemen they already have, and the 7th overall pick with a chance to get Will Campbell. Sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. That's a team that I think could sneak into the playoffs. Now, if they do draft Jalen Milroe, I think they could still sneak into the playoffs, or even a Jackson Dart. Not necessarily with one of those two as your starting quarterback day one, but let's see what Tyrod Taylor can do. If he struggles, then you insert one of them in, one of the two, whoever it is, or maybe Jordan Travis, who knows? A lot of Jets fans like Jordan Travis, but I don't think Travis is going to be all that. I think the injury that he had at FSU, I think the foot injury that he just had that delayed him, I wouldn't put too much – I just wouldn't put too much stock into Jordan Travis being the starting quarterback for the Jets anytime soon. But yeah, my top 3 options, draft Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart and roll with Tyrod Taylor as your starting quarterback. Bring in Daniel Jones on a prove-it-year deal. Or same thing, prove-it-year deal for Justin Fields. And I think Justin Fields has the best chance out of these free agent quarterbacks to become the franchise guy for the Jets. And now that's putting a lot of pressure on a guy like Justin Fields, but I think, I still think his upside is very high. I still think Justin Fields has a very high upside. And now I have seen some Jets fans calling for Sam Darnold. The Jets can't afford Sam Darnold. They can't. After they cut, I think they're going to not designate Aaron Rodgers for June 1st. Like I said before earlier on in the show, you designate Aaron Rodgers June 1st, you're still tied to him in 2026. I don't think Moogie wants that. I don't think Moogie wants too big. You don't want to be paying a quarterback that's not on the roster big money. That's another $30 million cap hit in 2026 with Aaron Rodgers off the team for 2 years. You don't want to be tied to that. You cut him before, you take a little bit of slap on the face, for this year cap-wise. But in 2026, they're going to have a ton of flexibility. And they're going to want to pay guys and extend guys like Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, eventually Will McDonald in a few years, Breece Hall. So, I think the Jets' best route for long-term success is to not designate Aaron Rodgers June 1st. Even though they would save money this offseason. I'm not necessarily saying punt this upcoming season, but you're basically punting 2026, the offseason of 2026, by keeping Aaron Rodgers on that June 1st designation and then getting rid of him. So, that said, Sam Darnold is a very unlikely option. He is going to get paid a boatload of money. probably a Baker Mayfield or Geno Smith type contract, and the Jets simply cannot afford that. They cannot. Whereas if they sign a Justin Fields or a Daniel Jones, they'll have not a ton of flexibility, but a lot more flexibility this offseason. So that's what I would do. We need defensive depth. We could use some offensive linemen. Obviously, I love the three guys that I mentioned before, Vera Tucker, Tippmann, and Fashanu. And then if you draft Will Campbell, but you're still going to need backups. You're going to need another guard. Would sure up the offensive tackle, right tackle, left tackle. You can put him either or. So we'll see. We'll see what the Jets do this offseason, but it's already starting. The Aaron Rodgers news shocked. Even though a lot of people had a feeling that he might not come back, it's still a shock. Because Aaron Rodgers, whether you like him or whether you don't, the players did like him. Quentin Williams had a post on Twitter where he said, I guess we're going for another rebuilding year, and then quickly deleted it, which shows me that Aaron Glenn and Moogie ain't playing around. Because I'm sure they probably saw that and were like, yo, take that down. We ain't doing this anymore. And that's another thing. That's why I haven't got too much time to talk about Aaron Glenn. But Aaron Glenn being a former player, a former Jet, relatively very good Jet during his time, he can hold players accountable. Like Robert Saleh, it felt at times, was kind of afraid to hold players accountable. So, and that's another thing. That's why I also think the Jets have a chance at making the playoffs next year with a guy like Justin Fields or Daniel Jones. It's because this head coaching staff, one, they're going to hold people accountable, and two, they're much better. The Jets definitely, most certainly, had the worst coaching staff in 2024. No doubt about it. Robert Saleh, there's people that are going to be like, well, Aaron Rodgers, he cost Joe Douglas and Rob Saleh their jobs. Honestly, good. Because Robert Saleh was never going to be a great head coach. Never. So, Aaron Glenn coming in, taking over a relatively good defense that was number one just a few years ago with a lot of guys that are still on their roster. I'm excited for it. Especially if we get Justin Fields, I'll be overly excited. If we get Daniel Jones, I'll be probably semi-excited. If we get Jalen Milroe, I'll be ecstatic. I love the ceiling that he has. Like I said before, I think he does have a higher ceiling than Shadeur Sanders. He's definitely more of a risk to draft because Shadeur Sanders, in Colorado, he was arguably the best college quarterback. But, we'll see. We'll see what the Jets do. They won't disappoint us in the offseason. That's what I learned. They never disappoint. They never disappoint in the offseason. They always disappoint when the regular season kicks off. All right, enough on the Jets. Let's get into these next topics. We got the Mets. We're going to grade their offseason. We're going to grade the Yankees offseason. We're going to talk about what the Giants should do. And then my Knicks, we get Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby back very soon. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Mitchell Robinson and OG because we all know what OG brings to this team. They just win with OG. His defense, his offensive capabilities. Mitch, I think he's the guy for the Knicks that is really going to take them from, I would say, Eastern Conference Finals contender to an NBA Finals contender. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but we'll start off with some baseball real quick. Let's grade the Mets in the offense. The Mets offseason compared to the Yankees. Bob Nightingale of USA Today had an article where it really kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. He said that the winners of the offseason, the main winner was Juan Soto. And he basically clowned the Mets saying, how can you pay this guy $765 million, blah, 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 blah. Anybody who is ripping the Mets for signing Juan Soto to a mega deal is out of their minds. This guy is 26 years old. He hasn't even entered his prime. He gets on base 42% of the time. Juan Soto is an enormous upgrade just himself. With or without Pete Alonso, it's an enormous upgrade. Now that you bring back Pete Alonso and Michael Kay, but you paid what, a Nissan, a Maserati price? Dude, it's 1 year. It's 1 year he's being paid $30 million. And you know what? I don't care. One, it's not my money. It's not any other Met fan's money. And 2, it's Pete Alonso. If I want to see anybody get paid $30 million that shouldn't get paid $30 million, it's the guy that's about to break the home run record this year for the Mets, not MLB, for the Mets. It's 27 home runs away from passing Darryl Strawberry. So good for Pete. Good for Pete. And you know what? Good for Soto. Because Steve Cohen, when he bought this team, his goal was to win a World Series in 3 to 5 years. Obviously, that did not happen. Although I think it is year 5, and we'll see. Got me smiling on that one, but he can still live up to that goal this year. But he also wants to build a dynasty. He traded for Francisco Lindor and gave him over a $300 million contract, where even Mets fans were like, what? That's a lot of money. How does that deal look now? That deal looks like a bargain, especially for a guy that just finished second in NL MVP voting, only behind Shohei Ohtani, when he had a masterful 50-50 season. So how's that contract look now? Juan Soto, he's not going to, even if he is, let's say he is a first baseman and just a DH in 5-7 years. Okay, he's still a top 5, arguably a top 3 hitter in MLB. He gets on base, like I said before, 42% of the time. And then you want to go out there, Bob Nightingale, he goes out there and he says, oh, the Yankees, that's $760 million that they never spent. Then why did the Yankees offer him that contract? You want to know why? Because for the first time since 2009, they made a World Series in Juan Soto's only year with the team. And I don't want to hear that Juan Soto only had a great year because of Aaron Judge. Just look at Juan Soto's stats throughout his career. He's always been a generational hitter, even without Aaron Judge. And now on the Mets, I mean, overall, I'd say they have a better lineup than the Yankees did last year. Because last year, Stanton was great when healthy, and he still had a sub-800 OPS. Now look at this Mets lineup. Yeah, they don't have Aaron Judge, but you know what they do have? They have Brandon Nimmo with a career 808 OPS. They have Pete Alonso, who is a walking 35 home run guy. And say what you want about Alonso, he had one down year. Every year besides last year, with runners in scoring position, he had over an 800 OPS. In 3 out of his 5 full seasons, he's hit 40-plus homers, and he recorded over 115 RBIs. So now Alonso and even Lindor and Nimmo and Mark Vientos, I think are going to have great years because they have a guy like Juan Soto in that lineup. And Juan Soto is still going to be Juan Soto because he has Lindor, who's probably going to hit right in front of him. Imagine this. What is the pitcher going to do? If Lindor gets on base, who proved to be the best leadoff hitter in baseball last year, if Lindor gets on base, you have to pitch to Juan Soto. You can't just try to walk him and pitch around him. If you do, and he gets on base, runners on first and second, no outs for Mark Vientos, and let's say Vientos gets out. Well, then you got Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso gets out. Well, then you got Brandon Nimmo. The 1 through 5 the Mets have is the best 1 through 5 I've ever seen for the Mets. I've ever seen. I wasn't alive in '86, obviously, but this is better than 2006.
Yeah, we should have stopped back.
It's better. 2006. What's wrong? 2006. Jesus. But there's 1 through 5 is star-studded, and then I'm not even accounting for Francisco Alvarez, who, if he lives up to the hype, let's not forget that he was the number 1 prospect in baseball just 2 years ago. Let's not forget that in his rookie year, just 2 years ago, he hit 25 home runs. I'm not even counting him. If he hits, let's say, 240 and hits 25, 30 home runs, well, there's 6 guys right there who can hit 25-plus home runs in your lineup. And then Jeff McNeil, who had over a 920 OPS after the All-Star break, hit 289 after the All-Star break. What if he's that? What if he's that? What if he's a shade of himself in 2022 when he won the NL batting title? The Mets have a lot of wild cards even in that bottom of the order. And then DH, I like the platoon of Starlin Marte and Jesse Winker. Jesse Winker doesn't kill right-handers, but he's had a lot of success off right-handers throughout his entire career. With runners in scoring position last year, he hit over 300, had over an 850 OPS. Starlin Marte hit 313 last year against left-handed pitching. And Sterling Marte had a bunch of clutch hits in the postseason for the Mets this past year. So I like the DH platoon. Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri, I mean, they're there for their defense. But that's where a spot opens up for one of the young guys, like Luis Angel Acuna, who was obviously in his only 13 games. But, I mean, he had some big shoes to fill when Lindor went down, and he filled them. He did fill them. In the Venezuelan Winter League, he hit over 300, had over a 950 OPS. I mean, in the minor leagues, I love Acuna. I don't think he's going to get the opening day second baseman job, even if he breaks in spring training, because McNeil, with the money he's getting paid in the second half he's coming off of, and just, he does, everybody, he won, batting title a few years ago. Just a few years ago. Well, you know what? He had a great second half, probably the best stretch of his career. I'm willing to roll the dice with McNeil and see what he got. And you know what? If he starts out the year slow, then Acuna will get that opportunity. He will. And then, Brett Beatty, I'm not completely giving up on him, but I'm not buying in on him. I'm not buying any stock on Brett Beatty to be what Mark Vientos did last year for us. But you never know. The Mets they regard Brett Beatty very highly. So, I like Brett Beatty. You also got Drew Gilbert, who will I think Drew Gilbert ends the season as the Mets center fielder. So I like the outlook of this Mets lineup. Their rotation filled with question marks, especially after Senga, Peterson, and Manaea. Clay Holmes, that's rolling the dice with Clay Holmes. We're rolling the dice with Frankie Montas. But I'm not going to hate it until they suck. And what David Stearns and Jeremy Hefner and that pitching lab did for Luis Severino last year, for Jose Quintana last year, for Sean Manaea last year, for even Drew Smith out of the bullpen last year, you got to like what they have done with their pitchers. They resurrect pitchers' careers. So I like it. I do like the back two. You also have Griffin Cannon. I'm not too high on him, but you never know. Same thing with Tyler McGill. It doesn't look like they're going to be bringing back Jose Quintana, which, I'm a little confused by. I think he would be a good starter to be in a six-man rotation for the Mets, especially considering he'd be cheap, coming for a one-year deal probably. But you know what? I'm not David Stearns. I'm just a fanalist. I'm a fanalist. And the Mets, do they have the best starting rotation? No. But they have a great bullpen now. Bringing in A.J. Minter, bringing back Ryan Stanek. If Edwin Diaz is a shade of himself in 2022, this bullpen is going to be lights out. The Mets' plan for 2025 is to kill opposing pitchers. They want to bludger. They want to murder opposing pitchers, and they can with the lineup they have. They're 1 through 5, all has 25-plus home run potential. Lindor, Vientos, Soto, Alonso can all hit 30-plus home runs. Vientos hit 27 home runs in only 110 regular season games. Outside of Giancarlo Stanton, he probably had the best postseason out of all MLB players. So I love the direction this Mets team is headed in for 2025. I love it. And that's not even mentioning Brandon Sproat, who the Mets obviously have not traded Brandon Sproat because they think highly of him as well. So let's see. Let's see what this Mets team does in 2025. Last year, it was fun. You had the Grimace. You had Seymour Wiener. You had all these fun little memes, the OMG song, which I'm going to miss Jose Iglesias. The Mets did offer him a one-year contract, reportedly, according to Pat Ragazzo. But it remains to be seen if he'll accept that or not. I think he's looking for, honestly, I think he was ready to retire just 2 years ago. But after the year he's had, the guy's hit over 290 since 2021. If he's looking for a multi-year deal, it's not going to be with the Mets. But if he wants to come back to the Mets, I'm all for it. Seems like the Mets are interested in a reunion, but not heavily. But if he does come back, that'd be great. That would be great. I'm not going to lie. But, the memes are done. The Mets memes are done. 2025 is all business. 2025, the Mets have high expectations. And they have a loaded division. The NL East is stacked. But they have this polling form. Carlos Estevas, Jeff Hoffman, both left the Phillies. Their bullpen's going to take a step back. You look at the Atlanta Braves. Ronald Acuna Jr., he's going to be missing at least the first 6 weeks of the season. So they could get off to a head start against the Braves, who are probably, I would say, when healthy, they're right up there as the best team in the division. My bias is saying the Mets are the best team in the division, especially after adding Soto, bringing back Alonso, bringing back Nea, adding AJ Minter. But, the Mets, great offseason. Undoubtedly the winners of the offseason. Like I said, Steve Cohen wants to build a dynasty. That Francisco Lindor contract, when a lot of people outside of the Mets looked at it, they were like, what are they doing? And now look at it now. Look at it now. It looks like a complete bargain. And Juan Soto, he's not going to be good without Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge has never been an American League champion. He's never made a World Series without Juan Soto. So, star-studded lineup. And like I said, Francisco Alvarez, he could be the X factor. He could be the X factor in this entire Mets lineup. Because I trust the guys 1 through 5. I expect Alonso to have a bounce-back year, especially with Juan Soto hidden in the same lineup as him. He had one bad year. And they're, he's declining. He's declining. Pete Alonso's declining. I wouldn't say he's declining. One, he's had the same body. His body is not gonna age well. He's had the same body since his rookie year. He's gonna hit 40 plus. Mark this down. Pete Alonso is going to hit 40 plus home runs in 2025. And he doesn't even need to hit for a high average like he used to when he hit 260, 271 in 2022. He doesn't need to do that. Not in this lineup. With runners in scoring position, yeah, I would love to see him hit 275, 300 plus. And I do think he will. I mean, everyone's like, he's not clutch, he's not clutch, he's not clutch. In the playoffs, in the highest pressure spots, he was extremely clutch, hitting the first inning home run against the Philadelphia Phillies in the NLCS, saving the season, winning us the game, winning us the series against the Milwaukee Brewers with a home run off the best closer in baseball to the opposite field, to say the least. Like, Pete Alonso, I expect to have a big bounce back year. So I'm excited for this season. But like I said, it's not about fun anymore. It's not about having fun. It's about winning. It's about proving Mets fans right. It's about proving Steve Cohen and David Stearns, proving themselves right. They got a lot to prove this season. Am I going to be pissed off if they don't win the World Series? No. Am I going to be pissed off if they're not in the NLCS again? Yeah. Because they are the winners of the offseason. Even with the Dodgers getting Roki Sasaki, even with the Dodgers getting Kirby Yates, Blake Snell, even with them getting Tanner Scott, like the Mets still won the offseason. They added Juan Soto. All 30 teams wanted Juan Soto, even the Dodgers. The Yankees offered him $760 million. So make fun of that contract all you want. But at the end of the day, if he signs with any other team, they're somehow the winners of the offseason. But since he's with the Mets, it's the Mets. It's the Mets. But let's bounce to the other team in New York City, the New York Yankees. Listen, Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge are not getting any younger. The time to go all in for a championship is now. I think the way to go all in to finish this offseason for them, and they've had a relatively good, probably a really good offseason, I would say top 3, it's the Dodgers, Yankees, and the Mets, who's had the best offseason. Max Fried, I mean, you could even make a case. It's a great move for 2025, 2026. But giving a 30-year-old pitcher an 8-year deal, that is risky. He's going to be 38 by the time he's done pitching with the Yankees. So you want to call the Juan Soto contract risky? That's also a risky contract as well. Debatedly even riskier. I would say it is riskier. Not even a debate. But it's still very good for 2025 that they have Max Fried. And they did also trade for the best closer in baseball for the last, since he's been in the league, in Devin Williams. So those are two, in my opinion, I would say A-plus moves for 2025. A-plus moves, no doubt about it. Cody Bellinger, I'd call that a B-plus move because of the year he's coming off of. He only hit in the 260s, only 18 home runs. Had less than an 800 OPS. But like I've said on pods before, Cody Bellinger has a year like he did in 2023. That's a major plus for the Yankees. He's not no Juan Soto, but, I mean, Bellinger is still good. The other wild card for them is Anthony Volpe. If Anthony Volpe can finally hit consistently, because we've seen him do it. He had a really good postseason, I should say. Hit over 300, had a great on-base percentage. And then obviously the defense is what makes him stand out. He's a Gold Glove winner just his rookie year. Volpe is a great defensive player. But if he's hitting low 200s, if his on-base percentage isn't above 300, they need to figure something out. But that's also why I think they need to go out there and make one more move. It's not going to be Bregman, obviously. You know, I do like the idea of the Yankees going after Jose Iglesias. I think that'd be a plus for them. But I do really like the idea of trading for Nolan Arenado. Is Nolan Arenado the old Nolan Arenado? No, not by any stretch. Is Nolan Arenado's best years behind him? 100%. But, I mean, the Red Sox are major suitors right now in this Nolan Arenado sweepstakes. So you'd prevent the Red Sox being a very formidable piece in this AL East. Because Nolan Arenado would help them too, especially since they just got Garrett Crochet. But Nolan Arenado, I mean, in just 2 years ago in 2022, 30 home runs, 103 RBIs, hit 293, 891 OPS. Even in 2023, I think his numbers in 2023, even in 2024, I think his numbers would be good for the Yankees in 2025. But look at his 2023. Played in 100, and that's also another thing. He has not missed more than he's played in over 144 games every single year since 2015. Played in 152 this past year, 144 and 23, 148 and 22, 157 and 21. So he would probably turn into their second, third best hitter in the lineup, depending on if Stanton's healthy. But 2023, 774 OPS, 266 batting average, hit 26 home runs, drove in 93 runs. 152 games this past year in 2024, had a 325 on base percentage, 719 OPS overall. Slugging percentage took a pretty big dip, 459 and 23, 394 and 24, but still hit 272, still had a 715 OPS. And he hit 16 home runs. I mean, you know, are his best years behind him? Yeah. But if the Yankees are banking on a Paul Goldschmidt, if they're banking on a Cody Bellinger, you might as well go for a Nolan Arenado because Nolan Arenado will 100% be a better third baseman in 2025 than DJ LeMahieu. DJ LeMahieu has done nothing since 2021. Look at his numbers in 2021. Over the last 4 seasons, DJ LeMahieu is hitting 252 with a 698 OPS. He doesn't hit home runs. He doesn't hit for average. What's his use? He had a negative 1.6 WAR last year. Even in 2023, when he played 136 games, he had a 1.3 WAR. Like, I don't see why they would roll with DJ LeMahieu. Nolan Arenado only had a 2.5 WAR, but it's better than a negative 1.6 WAR that DJ LeMahieu had. And he's coming off a season where he was literally shammed by injuries. He had 3 different injuries. And he's going to be 36 years old. He's actually turning 37 in July. So DJ LeMahieu's best years are behind him. So their best option at being the favorites in the American League, which I still think they are, but they can be clear favorites in the American League by trading for Nolan Arenado. And, you know, Bellinger, I have a feeling with the short porch out in right field, you know, hitting in the same lineup as Aaron Judge. I do think Cody Bellinger will have a good year with the Yankees. Paul Goldschmidt, I'm not too confident that he will, but he always could. I mean, he just won an MVP 2 years ago. If he's a shade of himself in 2022, that's a plus for the Yankees, especially over Anthony Rizzo. But Nolan Arenado is a major upgrade at third base than DJ LeMahieu, or, you know, he's even an upgrade over, I mean, Jazz Chisholm is the upgrade at second base over Gleyber Torres. But, I mean, Nolan Arenado is a major upgrade over Gleyber Torres because really they're the same infield just without Gleyber Torres and DJ LeMahieu. And if you're looking at the Yankees offseason months ago, losing Gleyber Torres is not that big of a deal. Now losing Gleyber Torres, it's kind of scary because now you have to roll with, on paper right now, with Oswaldo Cabrera, who hasn't done crap since he's been in the league, or DJ LeMahieu. And say what you want about Gleyber, but Gleyber, he had a 709 OPS, a 257 batting average, and obviously he's only 28. And in 2023, he hit 273, 800 OPS, hit 25 home runs. So he had a bad year, bad contract year to have. But now losing Gleyber Torres is hurting more than it seemed a few months ago. Just only because they have DJ May. They trade for Nolan Arenado. Erase that. Yankees, I would say, are the clear-cut favorites in the American League with Nolan Arenado. Their pitching rotation, arguably the best in baseball right after the Los Angeles Dodgers. Definitely the best in the American League. I mean, the Dodgers are stacked and loaded. I mean, Blake Snell probably going to get Kershaw back. And Kershaw's probably – he pitches 20 games for the Dodgers. That's a plus. You know, you got Ohtani in that rotation. You got Tyler Glasnow in that rotation. Roki Sasaki, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Like, they're loaded. They are loaded. But the Yankees, Garrett Cole, Cy Young candidate. Max Fried, probably going to be a Cy Young candidate in the American League. Louis Hill, coming off a Rookie of the Year. Carlos Rodon, I think he won 15 games for them last year. And then Clark Schmidt is Clark Schmidt. Clark Schmidt's a reliable starter. And then they're trying to trade Marcus Stroman. I don't think he's going to be in the rotation even if they don't trade him. But we'll see, man. The Yankees have a loaded rotation. And to say the least, their bullpen is still good. One guy who I love that they brought back is Tim Hill. Tim Hill was great with the Yankees last year. Overall, you know, even after they traded for him when he had a 5.87 ERA. But, you know, overall, he lowered that down to a 3.36 ERA because in 35 games, he pitched to a 2.05 ERA with the Yankees. And in the postseason, across 10 appearances, he only allowed 1 earned run. And overall, in the postseason, he's only allowed 3 earned runs across 16 appearances. So he's a good postseason pitcher. He was a good reliever for the Yankees in the second half last year. He just clicked. And then, you know, outside of, I would say, 2023 with the Padres, and then obviously his 27 games with the White Sox this past year, he's been a relatively good reliever. In 2022, 55 games, 3.56 ERA. In 2021, 78 games with a 3.62 ERA. He's appeared in 45 games since 2021. 45 games in every full year. Outside of 2020, he's appeared in 45 games. So I think he still have a really good bullpen. And then obviously Luke Weaver. I don't know why that popped up. Producer, fix that. But, you know, the Yankees still have a really good bullpen. Bringing back Tim Hill was huge on a very team-friendly deal. You know, you still got Luke Weaver out there. Devin Williams obviously joining the fray. Best closer in baseball. Jake Cousins had a great year with the Yankees last year. Jake Cousins, I think, is an underrated piece in this bullpen. In 37 games last year with the Yankees, he had a 2.37 ERA. We got Tyson making an appearance over here. What's up, Tyson? The Yankees have 4 really good relievers. And Jake Cousins, Tim Hill, Luke Weaver, and Devin Williams. So we'll see, man. We'll see what they can do. But, yeah, man, I like the idea. And then Michael Arias is another guy who I love that they picked up. He's only 23 years old. 23 years old he is. He was once one of the top prospects in baseball. In rookie ball in 2023, had a 3.09 ERA. He's never made the majors just yet. He's never pitched a single MLB game, but, you know, if the Yankees see something in him, Brian Cashman, I mean, say what you want about him. I think he's a pretty good GM. If he sees something in Michael Arias, I'm confident they might see something good in Michael Arias. But the Yankees, I would say, you know, I'm saying that the Mets, you know, is knocking, you know, Bob Nightingale before for clowning the Mets and, you know, holding the Yankees above water. But at the end of the day, you know, both these teams had great off seasons. Both of them. Like the Yankees brought in the best closer in baseball. They brought in Cody Bellinger, as I mentioned before, who I think is going to have a great year at Yankee Stadium, hitting in the same lineup as Aaron Judge. Paul Goldschmidt to be the shade of what he was in 2022. That's another plus. I'm not expecting him to be the MVP Paul Goldschmidt that he was, but just a shade. Just a shade. It's only 2 years removed from that. You know, Stan, if he's healthy, we all know what he can do, especially in the postseason. Just get to the postseason healthy, and Stan's a plus. And they make a trade for Nolan Arenado. That's really good. And then I'm leaving out Jason Dominguez. And, now that he's getting his fair shot to be the everyday outfielder, only 22 years old, he just never really got a fair shot. He's only played 26 Major League games, 18 in 2024. In 2023, only 8. But you look at his minor league numbers across 4 years, 274 in his minor league career, 373 on base percentage, 816 OPS. If that success can translate in 2025, I think we're talking about a 20-plus homer kid that's only 22 years old. Even if he hits, let's say 260, let's say he even hits 15-plus home runs, that's an upgrade over Alex Verdugo. And then also, Aaron Judge doesn't have to play right field anymore. Center field anymore. He's going to be back in his old spot, right field. So Aaron Judge might have – now, it's hard to expect Aaron Judge to have another 50-homer year, but it's Aaron Judge. How can you not? And even if he doesn't, he's going to hit 45-plus, 40-plus. So I'm excited for this Yankees team. I'm excited for this Mets team. Like I said, if you rank off seasons, I go Yankees 3, Dodgers 2, Mets 1. Maybe I'm a little biased, but Mets 1, you can make a case that the Dodgers had a better offseason by bringing in Roki Sasaki, Blake Snell, Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates. But, the Mets brought back Pete Alonso. They brought in Juan Soto. They brought in AJ Minter, who I think is the most underrated signing all offseason. He's had very good success for 8 years. 8 years with the Braves in the NL East. He's coming off a 2.62 ERA season. Since 2020, he's had a 2.85 ERA. He appeared in 39 games last year, 70 games in 23, 75 games in 22, 61 games in 2020. 61 games in 2021. And then 2018, he appeared in 65 games and had a 3.23 ERA. He's only 30. And it's only a 2-year deal, another team-friendly deal. So, Yankees and the Mets, stop arguing with each other on who had the better offseason. They both undoubtedly had top 3 offseasons. They both undoubtedly should be in the playoffs in 2025. They're both World Series contenders headed into 2025. Obviously, the Dodgers are clear favorites. But it's baseball. Anything can happen. The Yankees were 3 wins away from getting past the Dodgers and being 28-time World Series champions. If you had Aaron Judge just produce in that World Series, you can make a case that the Yankees probably win that series. And now that you had Max Fried to that rotation, let's say they had Max Fried last year. Let's say you lose Juan Soto, and you have Max Fried, you have Cody Bellinger, you have Paul Goldschmidt. You make a trade for Nolan Arenado, which I still want them to do. You also have Devin Williams. They have a really good bullpen. They have I would say, an above really good lineup. I'm not sure if they're really good or elite. I want to lean towards elite, but that's only because they have Aaron Judge. I would say really good right now because Aaron Judge is really the only elite player on that offense. And then look at the Mets. They were 2 wins away from getting past the Dodgers and getting to the World Series against the Yankees. And now it's relatively basically the same team, just with Juan Soto and with AJ Minter. So I like both these teams heading into 2025. I think this is the best Mets team, I would say, on paper, since 2006. And they had a loaded lineup then with Carlos Delgado, Carlos Beltran, David Wright, Jose Reyes, Paul Lo Duca. They were loaded. So, yeah, Mets, best team they've had, I would say, since 06. You can make a case since 86. And the Yankees are, I would say, the favorites in the American League. So stop arguing about who's better. The only way we're going to find out who's better is who has the better regular season record and who makes it further in the postseason. That's the only way we're going to find out. You can't compare these teams on paper. They're very different. Mets have a dominant lineup, a shaky starting rotation, a really good bullpen. The Yankees have a really good bullpen, a shaky starting lineup, but a really, really elite, I would say, starting rotation. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, let's talk some Giants, and then we'll hop into the Knicks. Mitchell Robinson news from Shams the other day. The Giants Shadeur Sanders, if he's on the board, it seems like they are going to take Shadeur Sanders. With or without Shadeur Sanders, they need a veteran quarterback. And Jameis Winston is, I would say, not just the best option because of what he would bring to the table being a New York athlete. I mean, the guy was singing, just saying, I believe I can bike. Super Bowl weekend, hanging out with Bert Kreischer in the crowd, comparing, punt returns to a bunch of ostriches, I can't even say that one right. Comparing ostriches running at you when you have like a piece of cheese from your mouth. Like, he is hilarious. But at the end of the day, Jameis Winston, the only knock you can have on Jameis Winston as a quarterback is the turnovers. And obviously that's a very big knock. But one thing we've noticed with Brian Daboll, even during his time as offensive coordinator with the Buffalo Bills, he limited turnovers for Josh Allen. His first year with Daniel Jones, he limited turnovers for Daniel Jones. He limited turnovers for Tommy DeVito. So with Jameis Winston, a guy who is very turnover happy, I think Brian Daboll can make some magic with Jameis Winston. And they're going to be trying to win. Like I said, with or without Shadeur Sanders, they're going to be trying to win. Another candidate as a quarterback is now Matthew Stafford. They just hired his brother-in-law on the coaching staff. So now, Matthew Stafford with the Giants, with Malik Neighbors, with Tyrone Tracy. I mean, on paper, the Giants, they have a great offensive tackle in Andrew Thomas. They have a pretty good running back in Tyrone Tracy, an elite wide receiver in Malik Neighbors. I mean, defensively, Azeez Ojulari, if Kayvon Thibodeau can finally take a step forward, even if he doesn't, you still got Dexter Lawrence. Defensive line is great. With Matthew Stafford, I think you can make a case that this is a playoff team, not an NFC East winning team, especially after the Philadelphia Eagles are coming off the year that they just had. They're obviously the clear-cut favorites. They're not really losing anybody, too. So I would say the Giants could make the postseason with a guy like Matthew Stafford. I think Jameis Winston would be the most fun. I think it would just be awesome. But it remains to be seen. If Shadeur Sanders is on the board, though, they're going Shadeur Sanders. And they could also still get Matthew Stafford and Shadeur Sanders, and have Shadeur Sanders sit behind Matthew Stafford. This is a hot take, but I think Shadeur Sanders, his player comp, is a guy like Matthew Stafford, who loves to throw the ball far, can throw the deep ball. Are they the mobilest quarterback? No, not by any stretch. And I was just saying that you need a mobile quarterback, but Shadeur Sanders is definitely more mobile than Matthew Stafford, especially at this point in his career. But Shadeur Sanders sitting behind Matthew Stafford for 1 year, I think that'd be pretty good. Or even if it's Jameis Winston, he's sitting behind to start the year. Because Jameis Winston also has a cannon, just like Shadeur Sanders does. Shadeur Sanders, I would say obviously is better. I would say, even though he's never played in the NFL yet, I still think he would have a better career than Jameis Winston had. But I just don't like the idea of throwing a quarterback under the fire to start. Like I said before, when I was talking about the Jets, we threw Sam Darnold out there. We threw Zach Wilson out there way too early. You look at the two Super Bowl quarterbacks just last night. Jalen Hurts didn't start day one. Patrick Mahomes didn't start day one. What happened to those two? Jalen Hurts, two-time NFC champion, now Super Bowl MVP. Pat Mahomes, three-time Super Bowl MVP, like a five-time NFC champion. So it's really all got on the Giants today. We'll talk about them more when the draft comes around. Let's get into the Knicks. Mitchell Robinson coming back. I was talking about it on a few pods ago. Mitchell Robinson's upside on this Knicks team is huge. It's huge. Yes, the injury history is scary with Mitchell Robinson. He's been hurt more than he's been healthy in the past few years. But at the same time, Mitchell Robinson also played 25, 30 minutes with the Knicks when he was getting hurt. He won't be playing over, I would say, 20 minutes on this Knicks team. 15 to 18 minutes of Mitchell Robinson. You could even say 15 to 20, sometimes over 20. That's a huge plus for the Knicks. What they're missing this year is rebounding outside of Josh Hart and Karl Anthony Towns and shot blocking. Mitchell Robinson is one of the best shot blockers in the league, one of the best rebounders in the league. He's a good finisher in the paint. Obviously, the lob threat is there with Mitchell Robinson. I love the idea of Mitchell Robinson returning. And I also think the Knicks view that way. They view Mitchell Robinson that way because they did not trade him. When teams like the LA Lakers were calling Leon Rose saying, is Mitchell Robinson available? And we got rid of Jericho Sims. So clearly the Knicks are banking on Mitchell Robinson to be, a wild card X factor. And then with OG Anunoby coming back too pretty soon, it's not as much as an injury scare as we thought it was at first. That Knicks lineup, that 8-man rotation, Josh Hart won. He's got to stay in the starting lineup. But Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, McCall Bridges, Karl-Anthony Towns, and then you got a bench of Miles McBride, Mitchell Robinson, and Precious Achiuwa. And I want Campaign to get a little bit more minutes. I would like to see Campaign get some more minutes. And I think he could once Mitch comes back. I think we could see a switch of Campaign's minutes trading with Precious's minutes. But I mean, man, those 9, that's really good. Now the Celtics are freaking sick. They proved us that Saturday night. They are unstoppable on the offensive side. But you got to remember, we also did not have OG Anunoby. Josh Hart was guarding Tatum. Josh Hart was guarding Jaylen Brown. Like, with OG Anunoby in that lineup, I have a hard time seeing us getting blown out by the Boston Celtics. With OG Anunoby, I'm not saying we are definitively better than the Boston Celtics, but we are right up there. And if there's a team that can get past the Boston Celtics, it's the Knicks with OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson. So that's what I'll end today's show on. Knicks, 15 games left, baby. 15 games left this year for the Knicks. Tomorrow night, we got the Pacers on the road. Still going to have their upcoming schedule. We got Pacers, Hawks, 2 of the most hated teams by this fan base. And then the All-Star break. And then we go to Chicago. Well, we play Chicago at home. We go to Cleveland. And then the test is the Boston Celtics, because that's when OG Anunoby might be back and Mitchell Robinson might be back as well. And then we don't face the Celtics again until April 8th. But, with the 15 games left, let's go over. Let's see what their record. Right now, they're 34-18. I say Pacers win, Hawks win, Bulls win, Cavs will throw in an L. Celtics will throw in an L. So that's 3. 76ers, I would say that's a win. Grizzlies, that's a winnable game. Heat, that's a winnable game. Warriors, even though they got Jimmy Butler, that's a winnable game. That's 7 right there. Lakers, it remains to be seen what Luka provides this team. But I still think that's a winnable game against Luka, so we'll go 8. We'll be nice. We'll be biased. Clippers, winnable game. That puts us at 9 extra wins. Kings, winnable game. That's 10. Blazers, that's 11. Warriors, that's 12. Heat, 13. 14 with the Spurs, 15 with the Hornets, Wizards 16, Mavs 17, Clippers 18, Bucks another winnable game, that's 19, Blazers another winnable game, that's 20, Sixers 21, Cavs still 21, Hawks 22, Suns 23, Celtics keeping it at 23, Pistons 24, Cavs 24, and then the Nets 25. So the Knicks have 25 more winnable games on their schedule. If they win those winnable games, they'll have 59 wins. But I'm going to subtract 4 games from those winnable games. So I predict the Knicks end up with a record with 55 wins and 27 losses, which would be a huge plus. All right, that's it for today. Pete Alonso's back, baby. Pete Alonso's back. Yankees, go out there and make that trade for Nolan Arenado. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you guys for watching, whether you're on X, YouTube, Facebook. Head over to YouTube. Click that subscribe button. Maybe hit the like button. Help me out here. Tell your friends. Spread the word. Trying to grow a little bit more. Check out my articles on Fansided if you want. Fansided.com/author/JNolan. We had a few these past few days. Most recently, me grading Bob Nightingale's grade, which is stupid. Mets can only laugh as MLB insiders keep carrying Yankees above water. 3 best quarterback options for the New York Jets was just a day ago. My NL East power rankings, and then the 3 Mets who I don't think will make the opening day roster. And that's Brett Beatty, Luis Angel Acuna, and Ronnie Mauricio. Even though Acuna, I think, ends the year on the big league roster. Same with Drew Gilbert. The other 2, I don't see. All right, but that's it today. Thank you guys. Deuces.